Bricks and Minifigs is your one-stop shop for all things LEGO. Hit the link below to find a store near you.
My name is Mark Lorah, and I am a Studgineer on Instagram and YouTube. It's because I'm a structural engineer in my profession, and so I've been trying to do pieces that kind of reflect my engineering ability. And of course, I work with Lego studs, so that's how we became the Studgineer. And this piece here is my newest piece. I finished it just for the show here in Atlanta, and it was basically go to work and come home and build. A little bit of sleep left in between, but I got it done. This piece, it's a recreation of the United States Capitol Dome, and it's unique because I have cut it in half so you can showcase the exterior, which everybody knows and is recognizable, but the interior, particularly the framework, the iron framework, and the things that hold the dome, it's not really recognizable to people. So I wanted to showcase that and showcase some of my engineering.
Fantastic. How tall is this build here?
I know it's taller than I am, so I'm estimating about 6 feet tall. And the cupola and the Statue of Freedom on top is 27 inches. I was able to measure that. And the rest is probably up to the peristyle is about 3 feet, and the dome itself is another couple of feet. So I'm estimating about 6 feet.
This is fantastic. So if you can maybe take us through kind of the different layers to the build here, and some of the details that you were able to add on in each section.
Okay, certainly. If we start at the base, this is called the skirt. And I'll back up and say this whole piece is based on a famous engineering sketch done by Thomas Walter, who is the designer of the dome that was added in the 1800s. And so the portion that was added was from the original roof up. And so what you're seeing on the skirt is actually at the roof level of the Capitol itself. And it is a series of 1x4 bricks on the exterior, and then black bricks on the interior, again, to emulate that structure. And it folds at these corners, and it actually separates right here so that each section can come back and fold up to make it easier to transport, okay? And this section here, from here to this point, is called the peristyle. And it has, the real dome has 360 columns. I'm sorry, 36 columns, 10 degrees for the 360 way around. And of course, I only have half of that because I only did half the dome. And this piece separates right at this point right here, so that I can take these two sections and actually take them apart and nest them together to move it. This section up here, from this point up to here, it's actually called the drum section. And all of these are called out on that engineering sketch, which is where I get those terms from. This section's a little bit different because this is the first section that does not separate. And so it's all one piece from here to here. And I did that primarily because when you go around to the other side, you see the interior dome and the way it's structured, primarily in snot, where all of this is just stacked brick. The snot, it was difficult to be able to do that, to separate it. So I built that all in one piece, which limits you to how you can move it. And then likewise for this section from here up to the top, this is called the tholos, which is the actual dome portion that you see in the U.S. Capitol building. Interestingly, even though you call it the Capitol Dome, the actual dome portion is actually a relatively small portion of the entire structure, And so from this point to the bottom of the cupola, it's actually shorter than from the cupola up to the top of the Statue of Freedom on the top.
And what elements did you use to capture that statue portion up there? I know that can always be really hard to kind of get those human form type looks.
Yes, particularly in that scale. Um, it is a Native American woman, and so has a really fancy headdress on it. But again, I'm only doing half of it, so I was limited in what I could do. And I chose the dark gray there. In reality, it may have been more of a dark green, but I couldn't get the pieces that I needed for that. Now, with this sculpture, it's done with plates, and with tiles and curves to emulate the exterior skin. I did not want the stud showing on the statue face, and so I built a series of interior columns with studs on the outside, and so that I could then build up the form of the statue and skin it that way.
Well, let's flip around to the other side then, and you can talk a little bit more about the interior here and what are some of the design elements in this part of the build.
And we can start right here. This is the sketch that was the inspiration piece for the whole build. And you can see that I've done only from the roof level up. Maybe sometime in the future I'll do from the roof level down, which would be the original rotunda and crypt, and then that way I could complete the monumental staircase and everything on the front, and the colonnade on the front, but maybe for another time. Now, in here, you'll notice that we had the skirt section here. I have two additional sections that go from this point around, and they do separate as well. Now, they're clipped together, so you really can't see exactly where they separate. This portion right here is the frieze that you see in the sketch, and you'll notice I really haven't finished all the figures yet, but again, a future project. And I've got that done with brackets in snot so that I can go ahead and attach the figures to it. This portion up is the peristyle section, and again, it separates right here, and you can see, if you look closely, you can see the separation point right there. But it's clipped together for stability. The section from here up is the tholos. This is actually what took the most time to design, because you're using flat plates to do a dome, not actually only a dome, but half of a dome. And so what I've got are overlapping plates that kind of form that interior dome. And it's all supported with this technique, a lot of axle pieces here, and it's meant to emulate the iron framework that you see in the original sketch, which actually does support the structure. And all of this framework that you see here is repeated in the 180 degrees of the half dome. Likewise, when we go up to the tholos section, you can see it a little bit better because it's a lot more open. You've got the actual technique pieces here, which support the dome, and then you have a lower section of techniques that hold this. It's actually the painting at the top of the dome that you see when you walk into it. And it's a famous painting. It features George Washington. And again, that's something, right now I've only represented the colors of the painting. And I will go ahead and try and figure out how to actually do the painting itself and the figures. So a future project. Then we've got the outer skin of the dome, which is also held by technique pieces, and some more beams here just to form the difference between this curve here and the interior curve, and then the inner dome painting curve. So we've got three distinct curves in this one section, and of course they're all repeated every 10 degrees to form the structure of the dome.
I mean, this is really excellent, just monumental build here. So I love the way that you've accomplished this. There are a couple of other builds you have on display next to this I wanted to talk about as well. So we can start with this one here. Tell us what this is.
This is the Vitruvian Man. It is a famous sketch by Leonardo da Vinci. So it's a Renaissance art. And I wanted to practice my sculpturing skills. And I thought, well, what better way to do that than to pick one of the most famous anatomical studies ever done, and that was done by Leonardo da Vinci. Now, the sketch that he did, and you can see it down there, which is the original sketch, it was done just from the front. And so what he's done is he does the proportions and show how the relationship between the arms and the torso and the head of a human would do. Because I'm doing it in sculpture, I wanted to do it 3D. So I had to reimagine the rear of the statue in what it would be. Now, I had to look up a whole lot of male fitness models and things, and bodybuilders and things like that, to kind of reimagine and get the muscles correct. And we've got particularly the musculature here of the shoulders and the back, and then in the legs. And interestingly, I happen to be sitting next to a bodybuilder on a plane, showed him some pictures on my Instagram, and he started saying, oh, wow, the deltoid this and the lat that and the erector spinae and all this, that. And I said, okay, if a bodybuilder can name the muscles in my statue here, I think I got it okay, and so forth. And of course, the Vitruvian Man was done, the figure is actually done authentic. And for a family friendly like this, I have a removable fig leaf on the front there. So, but he's pretty authentic. So, and the major criticisms I've gotten actually have been, oh, you should just run them authentic and not use the fig leaf. It's like, well, we live in the real world too. So.
No, this is fantastic here. So great work. There's one other piece I wanted to make sure we talked about. This one on this other side. So what's the story behind this piece?
This piece, I call it the Good Shepherd window. And was inspired by a window in a church I actually grew up in, small town, Ohio. And the picture of that window, inspiration window, is down there. The window, it's absolutely gorgeous window in real life. And I remember I was back in the church for a holiday service, and I looked at that window and I told somebody, I think I can do that in Lego. And of course the congregant looks at me and says, yeah, right, and laughs at me. Well, of course, then I had to do it. I've got close to 10,000 little translucent Lego pieces in this window. And you're limited to the colors, so I had to make a few compromises to the colors, but I think it still works. Interestingly, some of the things that I think are the best features, you get the foliage back here behind the head of Christ and so forth. That was originally designed as just translucent green pieces. Well, I ran out, but I had some of the bright green pieces in there, and so I threw those in and mixed them in, and I think it works. Now, the piece looks best with natural light. And in fact, I've displayed it at a couple of art centers where they put it in the windows, and it just shines. I mean, literally shines. At a convention center like this, you just don't have the natural light, So we've tried several different ways to backlight it, and not really. It's hard to beat natural light, So if you shine a light at it, you kind of get hot spots. But so we're still working on a way to artificially light it, but we'll figure something out. So now, one of the things about this piece is that the first time I tried to transport it, it lasted to the railroad tracks a block away from the venue. And it broke and separated right about here where I've got a jumper line that switches the plates by half a stud. And so I said, well, if that's going to be the case, and that's the weak spot, let's just do it. And I designed it then to actually separate at that point so it comes apart in 2 sections. And that way I can transport it a little bit easier. So, unlike the Vitruvian Man, which I have to completely disassemble, or it'll just completely fall apart in transport.
No, you've got to keep those things in mind. But this is all spectacular work here, so thank you for all your effort in building these, bringing them out to the show, and taking us through some of the behind the scenes of these builds. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, guys.